All right, we're recording this 4th hour. Okay, everybody look at the camera. Smile. Wave.
Can you bring it back
Camera,
this
come
way?
on. Okay. Wave. Come on.
Can you bring it back this way, please?
Yes.
I was coming.
You'll be in the picture a lot.
So cool.
Okay.
How does that happen?
All right, holy cow, we just took 2 minutes on that.
It's been 3 days.
All right, so
Stuck in here.
the question was asked about test preparation. Okay, I will do a review with you guys. Not only will I give you a review sheet, if you're behaving yourselves, I will go over it with you. If you want to talk and do other things and review on your own, I'll let you do that too. Okay, but you want me to review with you, right?
Yes.
So we'll do that the day before the test. You'll turn in your review sheet the day of the test, the next day, for 5 points. Okay, so that's like, hey, a point on the review sheet's the same as a point on the test. Okay, so my people that have me for government know kind of this routine. All right? Yes.
So we're getting the review sheet the day before the test?
Yes. I can make it available to you before then.
Okay.
Through Edmodo. Yeah.
But we won't.
Now I'm making an adjustment here. I haven't taught this class in a while, so I got to go through and find my regular review sheet, my honors review sheet. You know.
This bad boy?
You already print one off?
Mm-hmm.
Which one is that? Because a lot of the stuff, yeah, this is honors.
Dang it.
Well, it's okay. It's got lots of information on it. Really, the main difference between this class and the honors class is going to be the test, okay, and the review, okay? Because with my honors kids, I don't review with them. Just give them a review sheet, say, here, do you have time to study? Test is tomorrow. Okay. This class, I'm going to spoon feed you a little. Okay. But that's okay. I'm all right with doing that. All right, because for some of you, this isn't the most interesting thing in the world, and we all learn a little bit differently. So I was not an honor student, so I don't have that elitist mentality. Okay. But some of you guys could do. You guys could do okay in honors. You know.
You think I would?
It's just a little extra. I haven't given you a test in a while there, so I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, you screwed me on that curve.
Hey, would you just chill down? Okay. Now, all right, back to this. All right, the video yesterday was pretty good when it comes to the Roaring '20s, right? So one of the things that really they talked about quite a bit was cars, automobiles, right? And so, I mean, here's just some numbers here: 7 million cars on the road in 1918 already. Okay, and then production is ramping up. Cars are becoming more affordable. As we're making all these products, we're making movies, we're making radios, phonographs, refrigerators, iron, toasters, vacuum cleaners, washing machines, by the millions. And all the people that are making those are Americans. So all those people have jobs. All those people have extra income at the end of the week. And what do they want? With that leisure time that they have, because we get to the 40-hour work week and that sort of thing, we want to be entertained. And how are we going to entertain ourselves? Movies. We're going to go to the ball game. We're going to watch the boxing match. We're going to go watch a golf tournament. We're going to go to a college football game. Okay? We're going to entertain ourselves. And because, guys, think about this. If you ever wanted to hear music prior to the radio or the phonograph, you had to go to a concert. You had to go listen to somebody perform that music or do it yourself. I mean, you can sing in your house or what have you. But actually, to go listen to music, now you can do that in your home, and you can change the channel to a different station to hear a different kind of music, or you can go buy records and play them in your house. So music really becomes a massive part of our culture. All right? And so it's a great time to be alive. But this is also the sexual revolution, guys, for women. Okay? Ladies, when you used to wear a dress or a skirt, if it showed your ankle, it was like, now all of a sudden they're shooting up to the knees. Get to the 1980s and let's just go ahead and bring in the mini skirt. Okay? But this is liberation for women. Women, they're smoking cigarettes in public, wearing lipstick, cutting their hair in a short boyish bob. A lot of traditional Americans were shocked by what they saw, the way women were acting and behaving. Okay? But it's called freedom. Okay? And for many women started to achieve economic freedom as well, where women were working. And they didn't necessarily need the men. Okay? So a lot is changing here. Okay? And I don't know if you guys remember the first time you got in your car without having a parent with you, and you drove away from the house, the feeling that you had of freedom. Okay? I remember. I remember being a teenager, driving away from the house. Did I tell you what kind of car I had? I told you about that. A Lincoln Continental. And it was great. Okay? Huh?
How big was it?
About 23 feet long.
No, Lily has a Lincoln Continental. It's a boat. Long.
Who does?
Lily, too.
Does she? Yeah. Kind of floats when you're riding that?
And it has like a, I think it's Benji the
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's
Big old engine. Yeah. So we kind of talked about this a little bit and then watched a video over it. There are some major advances here, guys, like to health and education, medical advances. Many diseases brought under control. Typhoid fever. Like any fever, like if you get the flu, it can kill you, especially for the young and the old. Okay, those that are more vulnerable. But then diseases like diphtheria. If you get diphtheria, your esophagus swells, and you can't swallow. So people get dehydrated. They can't eat. Okay, so you got an intravenous health care. Say that? Intravenous? Intravenous. Intravenous?
Sure. Yeah, that's it.
We know what you mean.
Intravenous fluids and so forth. But people would die from diphtheria. Okay? And then the measles. How many of you guys have had the chicken pox? Chicken pox? Okay. It's becoming more rare.
My mom made me get it.
Yeah.
She took me over to my friend's house and I had to suck on the same lollipop. And she made me get it.
Yeah, it's good. You want to get it as a child.
Yeah, so because when you get it older, it's
You
worse.
don't want to get it when you're old. Huh?
Isn't it like Lord that's what we get? Like it's
Well,
bad.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it gets worse.
yeah. And the measles are kind of like chicken pox on steroids. There's also the mumps, okay? And I can pretty much guarantee you there's only one person in this room that has had the measles. Yeah. We almost eradicated it. It's still around and it's coming back because people aren't doing what? They're not vaccinating their kids. Okay? And so measles, I mean, it's not a big killer, but it can be accompanied by high fever as well. I had it when I was 5. And it's pretty nasty.
Are you like sick or itchy?
You're sick, itchy, fever, and you've got like chicken pox, but it's elevated, it's more. But we have a vaccine for that now. So, guys, during the 1920s, we're going to see life expectancy shoot up. As we are really, if you look, this is 1860, life expectancy, 42 years old. Okay? Now, this is the decade of the 20s. We gain about 6 years of life in the 1920s, life expectancy. And now, we're upward, as Americans, somewhere upward around 78 years old as a life expectancy. Women live longer than men in all cultures. And but last year was the first year where life expectancy decreased in decades, in maybe a century. Now, it only decreased by a few days, okay, not like by a year, okay. And you guys know in the United States, the biggest killer in the United States is what? Heart disease. Heart disease is the biggest killer. Okay. Number 2. Cancer. Number 3. Automobile accidents. Okay? Our lifestyle, what we eat, okay, and we drive a lot. So like if you go to a lot of European countries, they use public transportation, you take that risk out. Okay, so naturally you're going to have fewer accidents. And we have quite a bit of gunplay in the United States. And one of the fastest causes of deaths in the United States is suicide. Okay? Especially among whites. White men. Okay? Are killing themselves. It's staggering, the rise. Okay? I have some theories about this, but well, who do we blame for everything in this country now? We're under assault. Okay? White men can't do anything right. Because everything they do is sexist, racist, homophobic, xenophobic, or whatever phobic you want to come up with. Okay? It's like we're the enemy. That's just a theory. But, I don't know. You know, toxic masculinity. Huh? Did you hear about the new Gillette commercial? You guys,
No.
are you living under
I saw it.
I know, good job. That's McLean. I just said good job. Okay.
First time ever.
Okay. Gillette ran a commercial in 1989. The best a man can get. You guys know Gillette, they make razors. Okay. And so it was like, they showed like these football players and baseball players and soldiers and doing like heroic things and all, you know, getting married and having women come up to them and stuff like that. It was just kind of this masculine, you know, the best a man can get, Gillette, okay. So they did put together kind of a social justice 1.5 minute, 90-second ad that basically told men that they needed to stop acting like they're acting. Okay, you guys familiar with the Me Too movement?
Can we watch it?
Huh?
Can we watch it?
Maybe later. Me Too movement?
No.
No?
Yeah.
Again, there you go. Good job, McLean. Me Too movement? Strauss?
Yeah, it was like the sexual.
Yeah, sexual assault against women and so forth, right? And so you had a lot of women coming forward. There was this big Hollywood producer, Harvey Weinstein, okay, who made like, you know, tons of great movies. And it was found out that, you know, a lot of times what he was doing was making the actresses that wanted parts in his movies, he was like forcing them to sleep with him and stuff, you know. Which was kind of common. I mean, people kind of knew that sort of stuff went on, like it's called sleeping your way to the top type of thing. But then you had other actors like Kevin Spacey. He's in trouble. You have news anchors that got in trouble, and so you just kind of had this momentum build on this, and so women felt more comfortable coming forward, which is good. And I mean, I'm not saying that's a bad thing at all, because we want, if somebody's a victim of sexual assault or harassment, they should come forward, okay? But the fact of the matter is, most men aren't like that. Most men aren't predators. I'm not like that, okay? Most of you guys aren't like that. You treat women with respect. You don't hit women, okay? But this idea that there's no difference between the sexes or the genders, okay? This is being perpetuated on everybody. And, you know, it's just a situation where is masculinity bad? Are we feminizing our men? Boys and girls are different. Oh, no, they're not. That's what people say. Well, guys, what you're having to do right here, gentlemen, now you're 17, 18, but making an 8-year-old boy sit in a desk for 6 hours a day in a school or 8 hours a day in a school is not natural for that boy. That boy needs to be doing what? He needs to go outside, he needs to run around. Okay, he needs to get rid of that energy. And some girls are like that. Okay? And some boys are more bookish. Right? But generally, are we taking away that kind of masculinity? Like chivalry, like opening the door for a woman. Okay? Or paying the check for dinner. These sort of things are now seen as like taboo. You have women that get pissed off, you know, if you open the door for them. Like, I don't need you to do that for me. Okay? That's feminism. Some types of feminism. And so it becomes a situation where you're trying to change the male sex from what it naturally does. Okay? And they call it toxic masculinity. Okay? Now, what is toxic? Toxic is sexual assault. It's toxic. But most men don't sexually assault women. The vast majority of men don't do that. Okay? Now, what about, I don't know, ladies, how you feel about this? Has this ever happened to you where, you know, you're walking in the mall and you'll see some guys and they'll see you walk by and they're like, and they'll look at your butt. Or their eyes will go straight to your chest. Does that happen? Does it happen? All the time? A lot? I can't hear you.
It's like, I look homeless whenever I go out. It's not an issue.
Well, I'm starting to notice this with my daughter. When I go out in public with my daughter, because she's, you know, a teenager now. And, oh, yeah. Like when she's wearing like yoga pants or something like that. And then you'll see like dudes like doing that. Okay? And boys, don't tell me don't ever do that. Okay? You don't think I ever do that? See a beautiful woman walk by? She's pretty. But what if I whistle at her? Toxic masculinity.
So we should let you whistle?
No. That's catcalling.
Well, it's like,
Do you want to put me in jail?
no.
Okay. Now, I don't whistle. It's called like catcalling, I guess, right? I don't do that. Have I ever done that? I don't know, maybe. A long time ago. Like when I was in my 20s or something. Or teens. I don't know. But if you see a beautiful woman walk by, and you want to go up and start a conversation with her, because she's appealing to you, or ladies, if you see a very appealing gentleman and you want to walk up to him, if everybody's worried about offending somebody or being offensive, how do we ever meet? You know? I don't know. It's confusing to me. It's frustrating. I think we should let our boys fight. In the Gillette commercial, they show two little boys fighting, and the dad says, "This isn't how we treat each other." Okay? Well, guys, we used to solve things with a punch in the nose. It happened. Okay? And then it was over. And it was solved. We used to play dodgeball. And now they're taking dodgeball out of school. Why? Because it hurts kids' feelings that aren't good at dodgeball. And they get bullied.
I played it last week in my time.
Good for you.
I sucked
Yeah. I love dodgeball too. But hey, you're a jock. What about for the kid that's bookish, that doesn't play sports? They can embarrass you in chess.
Like, yeah.
We find out what we're good at. Right? And if we don't allow people to find that out, so everybody gets a trophy. That's the mentality that millennials were brought up with. Okay? You finish dead last in the league and you get a trophy. Or you get a ribbon. Or a medal. For finishing last. Why? For self-esteem. Because we don't want kids to have poor self-esteem. Okay? Because poor self-esteem is going to affect how they grow. Okay? Well, how do you know when you're not good at something if you get a medal for everything you do? What message are you sending? Maybe next year I shouldn't play basketball. because I'm not good at basketball. It's not my talent. Maybe I should try and figure out what I am good at. But we want to tell people they're not good at stuff. Okay? So when people never learn how to fail, they don't know how to handle failure. Because when the real world smacks you in the face and says you're not good at this, you don't know how to deal with that. What do people do that don't know how to deal with failure?
Cry.
All right, I'm getting off the deep end here. Okay. People working shorter hours, earning more. Americans will spend more on education than the rest of the world combined in 1929. Think of all the colleges we have. We have free education K through 12. Now, other countries were educating kids too. But the amount of money that the citizens and the government spent on education was more than the rest of the world in 1929. Okay. This is a 1920s toaster. Okay. It's got these little levels, like hand levels here. You pull this up, put the bread in there, and there's a heating element in there. I'll show you some other stuff here. This is life expectancy. Now, this is kind of dated 1995, but it hasn't really changed that much. You see Japanese people living a long time, Japanese women living longer than pretty much anybody. That has to do with culture, diet, what they eat, what they drink. The French, they drink wine, red wine. Is red wine good for you? 1 glass a day, huh?
Isn't it good for your heart?
Great for your heart. What does alcohol do to your blood? It thins your blood. Okay, so what's the number one killer in America? Heart disease. Okay, that's the clogging of the arteries. So if you thin your blood, it keeps your arteries clear. Does that make sense? Okay, so 1 beer, 1 glass of red wine with dinner is good for you in moderation, right? So, and obviously, guys, we eat a lot of fatty foods, and there's always these debates about what foods are good for you and what foods aren't, which ones are going to give you high cholesterol and so forth. It's good to eat eggs, it's bad to eat eggs. It's good to eat eggs, it's bad to eat eggs. I think they're good again. I forget. But over the last 30 years, you've heard it. Don't eat eggs. They're bad for you. They give you high cholesterol. And then you get, no, they were wrong. They're actually good for you. Eat eggs. Okay? Well, look at our diet. I mean, eggs have been around forever as a food, as a source of food, right? So if you look at the human species and human beings and what we've eaten over time throughout millennia, okay, what do people eat? What are we eating now that our ancestors many years ago didn't eat? Processed food. Huh? Yeah, processed food. Greasy food. Okay? But the process, the chemicals in it, and so forth. Okay? Do you think our ancestors were eating meat? Yeah. Of course, we're carnivores. That's why I have these fangs right here. Because we eat meat. We need to tear through that flesh.
I don't like that word.
Flesh? Sorry. Rabbit. Okay? All right, what the heck am I talking about? Okay. This is a phonograph, guys. It's a record player. How many guys have a record player at home? Nice. I got a great set of albums. Great collection. Okay? And I have a record player. It's not very good. I want to buy a new one. A nice one. Okay? But what's interesting about this phonograph, guys, is you had to crank it to build up some energy so it would turn, turntable. And the original vinyls that they would put the music on, you could buy blank ones. And you could record on these phonographs.
A mixtape.
Well, you can record your own voice. Which, this is the first time people were able to hear their own voices.
What?
You know, remember the first time you heard yourself on a voicemail and you're like, I sound weird?
I sound like a male. I am masculine. I'm a masculine voice.
You have some, okay.
You're supposed to say no, Brittany. You don't. What the heck?
What do you want me to say? You're a jock. You're an athlete. You're tough.
Athletes have deeper voices.
No. No, not always. Look at Mike Tyson.
Oh, yeah.
You know what Mike Tyson is? Real high pitched voice.
Hey, pass me the rock. Sorry.
How did you stumble on this?
No.
This is a 1920s refrigerator. What did you do to keep your eggs and your milk cold before a refrigerator? Can you imagine living without a refrigerator? Salt melts.
You had an ice box.
Put salt on apples. What?
You put salt on meat and something to preserve it. Yeah. No, basically what you did is you'd have a cooler, like an ice box. Okay? Where do you get the ice?
The glaciers.
Yeah, in the wintertime, you have people that would go out on the lakes and rivers, and they would cut blocks of ice out. They'd put it on a truck, like a cooler truck, and take it to the south, where people want to have ice. Now, how do you stop it from melting? I mean, what do they drink in the south? Everywhere you go to a restaurant, they serve you this. So are people that are in D.C. right now, that's the south, okay? Water or in the south. Uncultured.
Tea.
Why?
Tea. What kind of tea?
Iced tea.
Sweet tea.
Sweet tea.
They don't have unsweetened tea in the south. It's all sweet tea. Okay? They don't serve, it's all sweet tea. And it's on ice. So you're living in Hotlanta, Georgia, 1900, and you heard of Southern hospitality? Have you heard of Southern hospitality? So you're going to invite your friends over in Atlanta, 1900, and you're going to serve sweet tea with ice. How are you going to keep that from melting? It's the middle of the summer.
You get a cooler.
You dig a hole in the ground called a cellar. Okay? Now, depending on how much money you have, that cellar could have, say, a concrete or a wooden floor, or it could just be mud. Okay? So you get these blocks of ice, okay, and put them in your cellar, and you cover them with something to stop them from melting. Not salt. Sawdust.
Oh no.
So you're having company. You go down to the cellar. You go take your ice pick. Get a chip off the old block. You ever heard that phrase?
Yeah.
Chip off the old block of ice, okay? And you're going to make sweet tea, iced tea, and you're probably going to have some sawdust in it. That won't hurt you. Okay? And that's how before we had fridge. Now, you could have a box like this and put a couple of those big blocks of ice in it, and that would keep your stuff cold in the cooler, right? But then in the 20s, that little thing at the top of that picture is the cooling element, okay? And I tell you what, I was in West Virginia about 10, 12 years ago. My in-laws used to live there, and we went over to their friend's house. In her basement, she had a refrigerator that looked almost exactly like that. Like, oh, wow, that's cool. I teach about that. The fridge is from the 20s. Can I look at it, you know? She's like, yeah, sure. So I opened it up, still working. She said it was refurbished during the war, in the 1940s, and it's been working ever since. They don't make them like they used to. Okay? But yeah, so, I mean, just all these advances, it's a great time to be alive. Okay? And then when we talk about being entertained, and I mentioned the music, okay, because music and dancing are just really going to take off in the 1920s. And so you've got these illegal bars, which of course we call speakeasies. You got the young women, the flappers, okay, short hair, short skirts, and then jazz, ragtime, blues. I don't care what kind of music you listen to. If it's country western or hip hop or rap, classic rock, pop music, all of these music brands were influenced from the early music of this day. Okay? I seriously want to teach that class, that history of American music. I want to teach that class. I think I'm going to do some research this summer and try and offer it as a class. Because following the music really from the 20s on is really interesting to do. But anyhow, huge crowds for sports. Sports really take off in this country. Baseball, this is the 1927 Yankees. This is Babe Ruth here, of course. The Great Bambino, the Sultan of SWAT. Okay? The Great Bambino. All right? Babe Ruth. This is Lou Gehrig. How many of you guys have ever heard of ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease? Okay? I could pull up a clip. I'll stop a little bit early. But he contracts this disease, and they named the disease after him, Lou Gehrig's disease, ALS. And, in the prime of his career, he comes down with this disease. And he addresses Yankee Stadium about his playing days are over. And it's really touching. But guys, games would start at 3:30. There's no lights. So when you watch old-time baseball films, all the fans are usually dressed up. Men are wearing suits. They're wearing hats. Women are wearing hats and dresses and so forth. Any guys ever been to a Royals game in the summertime? Kansas City Royals? Okay, talk about, hot. Sitting there in the stands, sweating, you got serious swamp ass going on. You know what I mean? Imagine wearing a suit to that, guys. Wearing a suit to a ball game in the middle of the summer. Okay. All right. All right. So usually the games were over by 6, and it really took off. College football. Any Notre Dame fans in here? Notre Dame football. The most famous was not an athlete, but the coach. His name was Knute Rockne, they called him. And he actually died in a plane accident. When you take the turnpike up going north, they have like a little museum up there. But yeah, college football takes off. I mean, it becomes this huge thing. Golf. There's a couple really good old golf movies. Well, they're not. They're about old golf. The greatest game ever played. And then there's one called The Legend of Bagger Vance. That's pretty good. If you like golf, those are pretty cool movies. But they're about the early days of golf in America. Boxing, huge sport. Okay, this is Jack Dempsey. Okay, and he's going to fight former Marine Gene Tunney in Philadelphia. 120,000 people. 120,000 people. Okay. And then, of course, Lindbergh, right? He was in the video. He's going to fly from New York to Paris in 33 half hours. All right. And then there's a movie about this called The Spirit of St. Louis. And any of you guys been to the Smithsonian before? Britain? You ever been to the Smithsonian? Air and Space Museum. This plane that's behind Lindbergh here is hanging in the Smithsonian. Okay. There's no windshield. In order to look out the front of the plane, you have to stick your head outside.
You're kidding.
No. Okay, he flew that across the Atlantic by himself. Now listen, 33 and a half hours.
Can you sleep?
No, there's no autopilot.
That's wrong.
Any guys like to sleep with like a humming sound in the background, like a fan going? Yeah. Okay, so I know when I get on an airplane, I'm that person. A lot of this is at night, over water. He's not flying at 30,000 feet, guys. He's flying at like 1,000 feet. So if you doze off, I mean, it's over. You know what I mean? You can't see where you're going. Okay, it was a pretty amazing feat.
Why didn't he take a buddy?
Because that had been done, I think. This was solo. Yeah. So he becomes an international celebrity. Like, what do you think the most celebrity name in the world is right now? Like, if you were to go to China, or you were to go to Africa, or Australia, the United States, or Russia, people would know this name.
Kim Jong-un.
Okay.
Kardashian.
What about
Kardashian.
celebrity? You think Kardashian?
I think Kardashian.
In China?
Yeah.
Africa?
Yeah.
So I'm thinking more like people like Michael Jackson or Michael Jordan. Obama, yeah. Trump, certainly presidents. Okay. But somebody that's not a politician or a dictator.
Tom Cruise.
Reba.
Yeah, maybe a musician.
No.
Well, Lindbergh was a household name. Okay, everybody knew who Lindbergh was. When I was growing up in the 80s and 90s, everybody knew who Michael Jordan was. I say LeBron James is probably kind of close to that because basketball is a huge sport in Europe. It's a huge sport in China, and so he might have that name recognition more than maybe anybody else. But Michael Jackson was that guy when he in his music in the 80s. So anyhow, Lindbergh is this national hero, international hero, and so forth. Okay. All right. This is Henry Ford. How much time do we have? 10 minutes? Let me do this slide right here, okay? This is Henry Ford, okay? In order to build all this stuff, right, I talked about the factories. We're going to have people going to work. We've got interchangeable parts, and we have the assembly line. Okay, so the assembly line, this is a picture of the assembly line in Ford Motor Factory, okay? And so basically, you have the chassis, which is the meat of the car, and then as the assembly line comes along, workers will place those other parts on it as it comes along, okay? And so they were able to mass produce automobiles. This is a guy that you probably should have studied last year, Frederick W. Taylor, scientific manager, making the factory more efficient. Taylor was a guy that figured a better way to shovel coal because the factories used to be powered by coal, first steam, then coal, and now electricity. Okay, so once you get an electric powered factory, talking about more efficiency. And so this is going to help us create the largest economy in the world. Okay, Henry Ford, it took time to assemble Model T. When they first started making the Model T, it took 14 hours to build a Model T. They shrunk that to 93 minutes. Building a car in 93 minutes. Okay. So by 1925, one car was rolling off the assembly line every 10 seconds. Now you can't do that today, can you? Because our cars have so much electronics in it, airbags, radios, computers in them, basically. And so you can't do that. Now we have robots that help us build automobiles now as well. You do need human beings still, but robots help with that. Okay? All right, I'm going to stop there. Sorry for getting so off track there. Have a good day.